Hey everybody, my name is Alyssa Arms. I'm the owner of Back and Step Physical Therapy that's located in Centennial, Colorado. If you guys have seen any of my videos before, you know that I am often inspired by things that are happening around me at that time. It could be the weather outside, it could be something that's on the news or things that I'm reading on Facebook or other social media. And today is no exception to that. On Monday, I was reading through my Facebook feed. I'm a member of a few different groups that are for physical therapists, physical therapist assistants, and students pursuing a career in physical therapy. And they're really great sounding boards, asking questions, looking for recommendations, sharing something funny that only another physical therapist might find funny. So it's a really great group to be a part of, and there's several of them out there. But anyways, on Monday, somebody posted something about being frustrated with their current career as a physical therapist, someone who's been out for a little bit, and it sounds like there were some changes at work so that this person isn't following the path that they were really wanting to pursue. The decision was sort of made for them, and now they're at a point where, you know, they're frustrated, they're disappointed, they might be regretting their decision in becoming a physical therapist. And I think this is something that a lot of us encounter at some point in our lives as adults. We may have something change at work that we're not happy about. It could be that, we tried an opportunity out and it didn't pan out the way that we hoped. It could be that you're just kind of bored with what you're doing. It doesn't really matter, but there's always a time where you have to make the decision of just continuing with what you're doing, making a drastic change and maybe changing your career entirely, or at least looking for another job someplace else, or creating some opportunities for yourself and just mixing it up enough to get yourself back on the path that you want. This is a topic that I have discussed frequently with different people, both in person and online, and something that I'm pretty passionate about, but was, really inspired by this original post, voicing someone's frustration with what's going on in their career right now. So then this morning, I saw a video that was shared by none other than Greg Todd. He's a fabulous physical therapist who is really into mentoring professionals and students in the physical therapy field, whether they're people who work for somebody else, want to become business owners themselves, really whatever situation they are. It's about promoting the profession and promoting the individuals within the profession to be the best that we can be. And he has some really great videos that he likes to share. This morning was another one of them. He was really fiery, really passionate about this topic, and also shared a little bit of tough love, which is always a good thing too. We need that every once in a while. So between the original post on Monday and the long conversation that has happened there, as well as the video that was shared by Greg this morning, that kind of tipped me over the edge for wanting to create this video. So hopefully, whether you're a physical therapy professional or student or somebody else in a completely different career, hopefully you'll get something out of what I'm going to be talking about. And excuse me if I'm clicking around a little bit on my computer. I just want to make sure that I hit some different topics and can maybe quote a couple of things that I have been looking at. So you've already gotten some background of what inspired all of this. But I want to share a story from my grandfather, actually, and a lesson that he started teaching me at a very young age. He was in the military for his entire career, which was over 30 years, and he worked in the mess hall, starting off as a dishwasher and just sort of working his way up through the ranks until he retired at a pretty decent level at the end of his career in the military. And the thing that he would always talk to me about was not becoming complacent with following what is in your job description. Too often I have heard people say, well, that's not in my job description. I'm not going to do that task or that project or whatever. And I think that's an unfortunate stance to have. There certainly are some situations where you're doing a lot more work and fulfilling a lot of other roles and expectations and maybe not getting compensated for it or that kind of thing. And that's a totally different discussion. But I think it's a wonderful opportunity, no matter what your position is, to always be learning about other opportunities, what other people around you are doing for their job, understanding how you work together, and then understanding the jobs that are sort of above or below you in the hierarchy of wherever you're working, and see, if there's an opportunity that presents itself, it makes it that much easier to get that promotion or take on a new position someplace else, because you've already proven that you're interested and capable in doing that. And, it was great hearing this from my grandfather and learning from his experience with it. I've also seen it when I worked at a restaurant in college. I worked at Papado Seafood Kitchen here in Greenwood Village, and they are really into training their staff. They also took on interns from DU who wanted to get into restaurant management. And regardless if you were an intern from the university or someone who was becoming a server or something like that at the restaurant, you started learning every role that there was up until the level that you were going to be presumably staying at for a while. So you learned how to work at the host stand, answering the phone, directing phone calls, handling customer complaints, seating clients, figuring out how long of a wait you were going to have for the next table that came in. You might work in the back and clean dishes, clear tables, doing some of the dirty work and that kind of thing. Maybe you learned some of the cooking. You learned how to bartend. If you were working up to the level of manager, you basically had to work every type of position that existed in the restaurant before you could be a manager when you were coming in for that internship. And so, being able to see that very idea from my grandfather in action was really powerful. I could see that it was really helpful to learn all the ins and outs of everything else that was related to you and your job, because it made you that much more successful and that much more experienced whenever you got yourself into a certain situation or something came up. And I was able to apply that same concept to other things that I did after working there. I had an internship in college that had a very sort of business heavy side to it. We were marketing our program. We were creating t-shirts and creating our brochures. We were getting advertising sold with local businesses to support our project that we were doing. We were in charge of interviewing, hiring, and training people who were going to be working with us in the future, whether it was fellow interns or group leaders that were working underneath us and that were being supervised by us. And so, learned some really valuable things. Even though I was never a business major, it was a cool job. I thought it was a lot of fun, and a lot of those skills are things that are now serving me really well as a private practice owner. I worked at a hospital as a new physical therapist and did a lot of involvement in different committees that were there, doing surveys throughout the hospital and gathering that data to help solidify our argument for getting certain pieces of equipment, changing certain policies, and that sort of thing. I worked at another clinic where I made every effort to learn the ins and outs of other people's positions, learning how insurance works and that kind of thing. And then one of my more recent positions was working at a place where I was basically just filling in as needed, but was there fairly regularly over a few years. And eventually the one and only physical therapist that worked there, who ran the department, left for another position, and we were without anybody running it. And so I was able to fill that position, even though I was not a regular employee there, and essentially run the physical therapy department. I assisted with ordering supplies, deciding what items we would have to issue to patients, creating schedules for both myself and determining when we needed to bring someone else in to cover additional hours when I wasn't available. I coordinated with the physicians that were in the office and worked with the front desk staff. And I created a handbook for anyone who was coming in on a day where I wasn't going to be there, so that they knew where everything was, they knew how the paperwork was. I had sample forms that got filled out so they could see exactly how everything needed to be completed. And there were times where some of my coworkers would say, why are you spending so much time and wasting your time creating these different, handouts and booklets and these different things? And, one, it made things easier for the person coming in because I knew what that was like, being the person covering a spot. But then it also made things easier for myself and for the other front desk staff, because the person who was coming in had some guidance and had an idea of how things worked and didn't need to come and ask questions frequently, or, not be able to do as good of a job for their patient because they didn't know where to find things or know if things were even available to them. So, there have been many opportunities since college already to start putting into place this idea that my grandfather taught me when I was young, that you're always trying to learn how things work around you and learning how to continue to promote yourself and make yourself better. So then that way, when an opportunity arises, you are well prepared for it. So kind of going off of that idea, and going back to something that's a bit more physical therapy specific, just because that's my area of expertise, but can certainly be applied to other ideas. I think it's really important for any physical therapist or physical therapist student to get an understanding of the business of therapy, regardless of your role. We spend a lot of time talking about what treatment technique is beneficial, what exercise progression you should be using, a lot of the details of what it is to be a physical therapist treating a patient. But there's more to it than that. We all know that. We don't spend all of our time just treating patients. We do paperwork, we deal with insurance, we deal with other professionals and help people navigate the healthcare world, which is its own crazy world with lots of different crazy rules. I think whether you're a brand new therapist, a manager, a private practice owner, you need to know the business. I think that everyone has their own practice and their own business that they need to manage. And I found that that has been something that has been really helpful. I think that, one of my jobs, I worked in an outpatient clinic, and I made an effort to learn about the billing, how insurance was authorized, how we marketed to physicians and to other referral resources. With that, I would take time when I wasn't busy with patients and needing to be doing something else. And when our woman who was working with insurance authorizations had some time and wasn't going crazy and wasn't on the phone, I wanted to learn more about patients' copays, what co-insurance was, how premiums worked. What does it mean when someone has a $5,000 deductible and they've met $3,000 of that? A lot of other therapists and most of the patients don't understand a lot of that terminology. So learning what all of that meant and how all of it worked together allowed me to have meaningful conversations with everybody. I was able to guide my patients through the process and make sure that I was knowledgeable about everything that affected my session with that patient. I would find out how many visits we would get covered by insurance and talk to them about options of how they wanted to use it and how to be most efficient with their coverage. I wanted to know if they were going to have the ability to self-pay if we needed more than we were given, or did we need to be creative with their visits because they wouldn't be able to afford more sessions once insurance only covered 6 visits. So not only did my patients appreciate it, but it made my relationships with the other staff members a lot stronger as well. When I had something come up where I didn't know how to handle it, they were that much more willing to help me right away because they knew that I had already worked on it and already had a good knowledge base and would have exhausted all of my other resources before I came to them to ask them that question. So it wasn't me just coming because I, was sort of too lazy to find out more information before and wanted the easy answer. I felt like that served me really well in those relationships with colleagues and with my patients. So I think it's really valuable that as an individual in your career, you learn as much as you can about the things around you, the way the system works, how it affects yourself, your coworkers, your boss, your clients. It doesn't matter if you are your own boss or you have, 5 levels of people above you who supervise you and supervise each other and all of that kind of thing. You need to own everything about your job, everything about your job description and your role. Make sure that you're good at what you do, and then figure out how you fit in everywhere else. And doing that and following that advice from my grandfather of doing that will serve you really well. It will help you create your own opportunities and help you be really well prepared for any opportunities that come your way. So again, I know this is kind of geared towards physical therapy since that's my realm, but hopefully if you're not a physical therapist or a physical therapy student, you've gotten something valuable out of this. This is something that I could talk about for a really long time, but I'm going to cut myself off at the 15-minute mark here. And hopefully you guys will check out our website, talk to me if you have more questions about this sort of thing. And hopefully you'll see me again soon with another video or some other fun stuff on Facebook and other places. So have a great rest of the day, and thanks for listening.